After months of anticipation and jokes about XJ9 and Cuphead, the Steven Universe movie finally arrives as the not epilogue to Steven Universe's not final season. Set 2 years after the heavily debated Change Your Mind, now 16-year-old Steven has gained a pink Letterman jacket, a deeper voice, as well as a neck for basically what comes down to a musical version of an anime filler movie. In the sense that we are introduced to a new villain that no one has mentioned before, creates some devastating but temporary havoc, and by the end, nothing appears to have changed, but apparently this movie's events will have consequences in the following season. I wasn't sure how to cover my numerous thoughts about this movie, so I opted to just cover all of it. First of all, this is a full-blown musical, so if you're not a fan of musicals and you're not a fan of Steven Universe, there's nothing for you here. If you're a fan of musicals but only when they're good, I say give this a shot. The movie begins with like 7 curtain pullbacks, is that a Broadway thing? And a beautiful painting aesthetic credit sequence reminiscent of early Disney films, complete with storybook. While the Diamonds serenade about Steven, the great and caring savior. Interesting choice, considering the ones Steven saved a big chunk of the universe from was, oh right, it was them. The 3 Diamonds implore Steven to take Pink Diamond's place and live with them in a song in the style of 1930s female harmony trios.
I seem to find the happiness I see.
But clearly Steven can't leave the situation fast enough. There's an adorable moment that confirms that Steven and Connie are still a thing, though a relatively innocent thing, before she departs the movie for the most part. And Steven sings the quintessential movie musical introduction that establishes our location, situation, and major players, the bonjour of this movie. Steven sings that now that the Empire has been settled and the Diamonds have been pacified, for now, that nothing else bad can possibly happen, and now he, at the ripe old age of 16, has arrived at his happy ending.
I'll give him a week.
I'll give him 11 minutes.
The Gems echo this sentiment by each singing verses about their own difficult, confusing past and how everything is better now, partially for the benefit of new watchers, but also because it will be important later. This segment has a lot of nice touches, like Steven popping into Lion's Mane to then pop out of Lars. Is he okay with that? Him using his bubble to go downstairs, that Lars is selling his ube roll, Onion has not aged, and we see the construction of Little Homeworld, the presumed residence of the newly healed Gems, and where we see the always welcome and never used enough bismuth, lapis, and peridot. After Steven picks a flower and kisses it to make it grow back, he talks about how perfect everything is and how much he doesn't want anything to change, and is immediately on set with the all too familiar occurrence of a strange flying space object helmed by a monocolored light projection of a rock, yelling incredibly vague accusations that probably have to do with his mother. This magenta Merry Melodies Harley Quinn, played by Broadway actress Sarah Stiles, will be revealed later as Spinel, and as we saw in the trailer, this character is completely different from every other character in the show because she's animated in the style of 1930s era rubber hose animation. Her entire character has connections to old cartoons, from the later design that is basically Magical Girl Mickey Mouse. Even her song is in the style of 1930s ragtime, but updated to an electro swing. And it is a bop, one of the best and singable out of the movie. That'd be entertaining enough on its own just to see a somewhat limited version of this style. There are moments of use and execution of this that are just gorgeous. Everyone, thank trigger animator Takafumi Hori, not to mention just seeing how these powers shake up the action choreography. But we'll soon learn the real reason why this character is animated in this way. She also has this super scary lightsaber scythe weapon, suck it whatever the third movie is called, that paired with her unusual powers she uses to quickly dispatch of the Gems before Steven takes her out with her own weapon. Doesn't seem to affect Steven though, I guess that weapon is made out of gem ship jail cells. Except that he notices that his powers aren't working the way they should. It's not long before the Gems start to reform, but it's a clever touch here that you know something is wrong the minute that Pearl is the first. Also, oyster shell? Pearl? I'm ashamed I didn't get that. Turns out the effect of Spinel's weapon has essentially restored all of the Gems to their factory settings, with no memories outside of the knowledge of their basic functions, except for Amethyst, who akin to her power seems only capable of imitating people. Pearl's song, hilariously titled System Boot. Pearl Final 3, might be one of my favorites, or at least my favorite moments, because it's an incredibly simple and catchy instructional video-esque melody. It seriously has the same sort of tone that a Sesame Street song has talking about the letter J, complete with this cheeky look at the camera. The whole scene is just really funny, especially when Pearl ironically pledges her eternal servitude to her former love rival, who is appropriately uncomfortable. But the clincher is when Spinel gets rebooted. Pearl explains that her intent is to be a best friend and provide entertainment, hence another reason for the rubber hose, and why her default personality is now overly giggly, aggressively intrusively friendly, interrupts people constantly with ineffective jabs at comedy and requests to play childish games, and is completely unaware and unconcerned with how much she's inconveniencing everyone around her. Oh good! It's everything I hate about Pinkie Pie! Except of course for the part where she's the most interestingly animated. And of course here that it's done intentionally. Wait, a super powerful character who spontaneously appears wanting to be best friends with the main character? Oh no, it's worse, she's a self-insert Mary Sue! I'm kidding. In fact, Spinel during this time is successful at being the kind of character that can be perceived to be annoying in-universe, but comes off as funny and endearing to the audience. A delicate balance only achieved by characters like Johnny Bravo, Pinky, and not Minetta. Now, you'd think, with the main 3 gems essentially out of commission, this would be a great opportunity to spend more time with the B-Squad gems, specifically Peridot, right? Unfortunately, not really. Their function in this film is essentially to find a way to deal with Spinel's deadly planet injector off-screen, while Steven carries off the rest of the movie wherever. Though there is an incredibly amusing moment where the 3 see Spinel's friendly form after being told she just tried to kill Steven.
Wow, quick turnaround.
It took me months to stop trying to kill Steven.
I say it took me a day and a half.
I'm still on the fence.
But this is where the film starts to drag slightly. It is the understandably emotional low point where Steven freaks out about everything going wrong before he collects himself to actually do stuff. However, while I do like musicals, I do get part of the reason why others don't like musicals is because of the tendency for songs to feel like they're holding up the story. And credit given, almost every one of these songs is used well to keep the story moving forward, whether it's replacing dialogue that needed to be said anyway, being diegetically used in the narrative itself, or at least while something else important and usually visually impressive is happening. This is one of the situations where this probably could have just been a 20-second conversation that's now stretched into 2 minutes. And also, it's one of those "we can do it as long as we stick together" songs, and MLP has kinda bottomed me out on those. But in that vein, it is still one of the better ones because its lyrics are not deliberately broad and vague. And I especially love how Bismuth takes the lead on it as one of the original Crystal Gems to talk about how awesome they are. And boy, is she so good at making you feel motivated and powerful. Also, this song is basically the movie in a nutshell. I'm tired of always being the one that has to do things. Child, we are the Crystal motherfucking Gems. We handle shit. But now we also have to deal with everyone's movie amnesia, which of course means that it's going to be fixed in the most movie amnesia way, with a journey down memory lane of series highlights. Almost like this was originally conceived to be a nostalgic series look-back / epilogue. It's technically a step up from a clip show, but a step below the Avatar play. That is a bit of an underwhelming, tropey plot point for such a highly anticipated movie. However, for a story that ultimately was intended to be about how far they've come and the importance of change, this is on topic. And I know that part of the reason why the trope is used so often is because it's just a really good setting for a lot of really entertaining moments and situations. I always enjoy seeing Ruby and Sapphire separated, and watching them gradually reconnect and refuse is just adorable, and a nice change that this time it's Sapphire that tries to save Ruby. And the song and the imagery when they refuse for the first time is just lovely. And it's kind of funny to see Splash Paint Garnet as naive and clumsy. The red wire or the blue wire? Now it does seem like the intention wasn't that the gems would be fixed merely by reminding them of what they've done, but how they've changed. However, this is somewhat muddled in the execution. Part of Amethyst's past struggles has been rooted in her confidence in being her own unique person, hence the imitation. And what cures this is imitating Steven. But at least some of that is reflected in the song, in the way that she starts by replicating Steven's cadence exactly and eventually developing differing harmonies and her own words. We get a sweet little tap routine, another old school musical staple, and when she finally regains enough to turn back, we see her flux into all of the bizarre forms she took in the episode Reformed. Later, Garnet isn't insta-fixed by fusion, but by truth? I think it is supposed to be love, but in the moment she puts a very strong emphasis on the word truth because it's tangentially related to what's going on with Spinel at the time. Something about how relying on the people you love can help you face a harsh reality, yeah, that basically works. But Pearl really is the only time I think that intent was really pulled off properly. She's not reverted by Amethyst turning into freaking rose quartz. What gets her is reminding her to live for herself rather than depending on someone else to give her life purpose. Hence the song Independent Together, where she fuses with Amethyst as equals. Oh, and how is this brought about? Steven and Greg fuse into the first appearance of Steg, this Johnny Bravo epitome of manliness. New fusions are always a joy, and I am so happy for Greg. His music and voice are brought to life by rock musician Ted Leo, who frequently duos with Amy Mann, who, hey, plays Opal, so that all worked out. There have been thoughts on why a fusion between a father and son is acting this suggestive. Because that's practically a stereotypical thing for rock stars to do. Music is a huge part of their bond, and Steg is the literal personification of Greg and Steven's larger-than-life style of performance. Fusions are an experience, after all. Plus, even if they are expressing hormones, it's toward the audience, not each other. I mean, did you not see that lead-in? Usually that's the sexual part. I'm more confused why the fusion of Greg and Steven is this ripped. I mean, I know that fusion makes you exponentially stronger, but really? Oh, and when Pearl flexes back, we see her in her pilot form. And with that, it's finally time to properly talk about Spinel, as at this point, we finally learn about her history when she starts to regain her painful memories. She was originally made to be Pink Diamond's best friend, and they used to play together all the time. Then when Pink was finally given her Earth colony, rather than take Spinel with her, she told her to play the standing very still game and promptly bolted. And naive, innocent Spinel played that game for 6,000 years waiting for her, officially making Spinel the poster child for the dangers of ghosting.
When somebody loved me, everything was beautiful.
This is the other purpose of depicting her with the rubber hose animation style, because it's a form of entertainment considered to be outdated, except for homages, parodies, and stylistic video games. Something that was just seen as surface-level silliness and wasn't capable of being intelligent, deep, or complex. Why should I care about this piece of entertainment that's incapable of feeling? Basically, Pink Diamond is representing the people who either just have a very low opinion of animation as an art form, or the ones that apparently exist that literally cannot connect emotionally to animated characters because they're not real. What? Neither is live-action stuff! That's all flickering lights on a screen! Spinel's song recounting this is heavy and wrought with pain, and it's another neat touch that, like her heart gem turns upside down in the cheapest way possible, so do her eyelashes to become tear streaks. After hearing this story, we get another priceless line that Steven is not at all surprised that his mother did this. But now we get the usual Steven Universe villain treatment. You don't have to be this way. All you need is new friends, Starlight Glimmer. I get people's frustration with this trend, however, Steven has in fact not been able to win over every one of his foes, and most of the ones he has did so over a semi-believable length of time, or just cleared up a misunderstanding. People's big issue really is about the diamonds, which is warranted. Also the cluster was solved very abruptly for the amount of buildup it had. But here's an interesting twist on that usual song and dance. For Spinel, it arguably works too well. At first, as she's currently vulnerable, Spinel seems to go on the emotional rebound and decides that Steven really is going to be her new bestie. And there's still 25 minutes left, so I'm sure this will go well. And after Connie suddenly reappears with an Akira reference, Spinell agrees to shut off the injector. Then, at Steven's flippant remarks that he just wants to forget that all this happened, as well as his general consistent dismissive body language, Spinell's trust issues flare up again, and she feels Steven was only nice to her just so she would do what he wanted. Oh, Spinell, honey. That's the main reason anyone is nice to anyone. I mean, she's not technically wrong. That is the role that kindness plays in society in general. We act nice and don't kill other people, so other people act nice and do not kill us. To put it in a cynical, simplistic way, that actually got me thinking. There's speculation on where a friendship gem got a planet-annihilating super weapon in what could have been as short as 20 minutes. And, well, it's pretty telling that how it starts and stops is by a technique that only these kinds of gems can use, and the fact that she calls it her injector. Is that actually what they're for? Do they manipulate beings with friendliness and then murder their planets? Oh, the Diamond's glee to have her back is so much worse now. Oh, and of course, remember when Pink Diamond's Pony Sona wanted to befriend John Delancey literally for the purpose of using his power?
But I have use for Discord's magic if it can be reformed to serve good instead of evil.
Yes, that digression was totally necessary, because Steven isn't like that. Steven does genuinely care about people, even people who are about to kill him. However, I do appreciate the mild acknowledgement that caring about somebody's well-being is not the same thing as liking them or wanting to be close to them, something made very clear by Steven's interactions with the Diamonds and even his own cold body language towards Spinell. He has, after all, only barely tolerated her antics all day because he had to, and it's not as though he forgot what she did. Heck, he didn't even thank her when she saved his life. But that's not really Steven's deal in this movie. As said, he's been more methodical with these kind of situations in the past, but right now, he's impatient and exhausted. The reason he keeps harping on about his happy ending is because he is so completely done with this shit.
No matter how many times you save the world, it always manages to get back in jeopardy again. I mean, sometimes I just want it to stay saved.
And that's not unreasonable. He just finished a 2-year diplomacy mission during which he was undoubtedly constantly pacifying the worst tendencies of 3 space dictators with the powers of atom bombs. It's understandable that he at least wanted a break. In fact, speaking of getting someone to do what you want and then bolting, the first scene of the movie. I mean, it's not like he owes the Diamonds anything, but did he really think the Diamonds were gonna let the conversation end there? Oh, and this moment where he tries to talk to Spinell during her rampage just reads, "I am so sick of always being the understanding one." Oh, and then she punches him in the face! That with showing Steven's blood is the most graphic that this series has ever gotten. So sure, under various stressors, Steven unintentionally acts a bit dismissive and naive. What? Steven naive? No. But because Spinell is still laden with a boatload of abandonment issues, it's enough to make her think that Steven is going to leave her or even reboot her again, which sets her off into a rage. What follows is a fascinating, visceral reaction, because this is the kind of twisted logic that your brain can go through when you're psychologically distressed. Spinell's abandonment hasn't just wounded her trust, it's laden her with self-hatred. I mean, why would Pink leave if there wasn't something wrong with her? So Steven also must find her lacking, and in this state, even repulsed. And after what she did, he must hate her. He wants to erase her. She even goads Steven into attacking her because that will prove that he's the one in the wrong and she's just protecting herself. She's essentially constructing a mental reality that will make her anger and desire to hurt and punish justified.
But I'm a little flattered that you liked the old me. Innocent, loving, stupid.
And with that one sentence, Spinell has explained the appeal of Moe. and thus the song True Kinda Love, which I think I finally get now. The lyrics are very much about Spinel, about hardship and blaming other people, and the true kind of love is about self-love. Garnet has learned to love herself as Garnet, and now she's responding to Spinel's self-hatred, telling her to take an honest look at herself, because only after facing a harsh truth can you start to heal and love yourself. I originally found this song really repetitive, and it is, but I love its lyrics about trying your best even when you're suffering. Plus, that techno lounge style is iconic Garnet, and I guess it sounds peaceful enough that it counteracts the terrible imagery of Beach City being destroyed by Danganronpa blood. And man, those flying sparks sure do look like cherry blossoms, don't they? And this time, when the Crystal Gems fought her, they were beating her, not simply because they were a team, but because they can adapt and learn and grow. And Spinel, who literally stood stagnant for thousands of years, is stuck in the past. But finally, the message of the movie sinks in for Steven. The universe doesn't care if you've saved the world how many times, and as long as you're alive, it will continue to make things difficult. And you can either sit still and complain about that, or you can try to make it better, starting with you. And it's the same with Spinel. Just because the universe sold you a raw deal doesn't mean you deserve to take your anger out on innocent people. That's just a subtle reminder to all of the people in the forums talking about how Spinel was in the right the whole time.
You know, I came here to take my anger out on a bunch of strangers.
The final fight between Spinel and Steven is amazing. Between Steven's new techniques, like his bubble boxing gloves, Spinel hijacking even more moves from Luffy, and again, the animation to pull it off. An interesting twist on the use of ridiculous, usually funny toon abilities to inflict some really aggressive violence. Plus the music on top of it makes this an exceptional climax. And again showing that half of Steven's job as the universal peacekeeper is just being a literal human shield that can take the brunt of others' violence and anger. What makes part of the show's message really hard to imitate. And the song Change invokes a much more encouraging sentiment than the somewhat egotistical idea of change your mind, focusing on being willing to change yourself rather than actively trying to change the mind of someone else. Steven's voice flipping from his head to his chest voice is a little distracting, but I relate too much to give him grief for that. And about 20 seconds after saying that Steven can't make everything better by singing, her anger high finally deflates and she's able to look at herself and admit that this is not what she wants to be. Another thing we haven't really seen from a Steven antagonist is one who's truly remorseful. But like addicts, compulsives, and certain mental illnesses, admitting that you want to be better is just step one. And Steven specifically, for various reasons, is such an anger trigger for her that she probably shouldn't be around him for a while. But then who can she start over with? Okay, so the somewhat narratively convenient solution that both of Steven's problems with the Diamonds and Spinel are fixed when they go off and flock off together is interpretation dependent in terms of if this move is progressive or regressive for Spinel. On the one hand, it does seem ideal. Part of the reason why the Diamonds loved Pink was that she was fun, and while Pink herself gained amusement from discovery and new things, which is why she grew so bored with Spinel, the others are not predisposed to seek out their own fun and need it to come from an outside source. And Spinel gets to be a court jester, I guess, which sounds like something she'd enjoy, so that seems perfect? Also, both of their song styles are from the 30s, and they probably prefer things the way they were 6,000 years ago. Admittedly, at least that one lyric makes a lot more sense now. Does he really? And part of the series' whole thing is having a caring and reliable support system that can help get you through a lot of hardship and help her to trust again. This could be that, but are the Diamonds really capable of doing that? And then you remember that all 4 of them have a history of violence they're trying to overcome, and that they could just as easily negatively impact each other as positively. Especially since it's both concerning and highly appropriate that White Diamond continues to be very unsettling. You can really tell that it's an effort for her to fight against her natural terrible instincts. Which I guess means she's trying? Actually, no, it feels so ingenuine that it's more like she's faking it. Which is honestly my headcanon. I still find it way more likely that she's deliberately putting on a facade until she can take revenge on this creature that humiliated her and disrupted her empire, because that's the kind of thing an actual dictator would do. And hey, she's got a pink replacement now, and it's not like he's a real diamond, the half-breed. In fact, doesn't it kind of seem like Spinel could be the maniacal pink diamond that they've always wanted? Then finally, after we re-establish that Steven can in fact literally fix the damage to the Earth by kissing it, cue reprise of Here We Are in the Future, but with new inside addendum, our last classic musical reference, and scene. So, Steven Universe the movie is mostly fantastic. For a television-produced musical originally made to be a finale that now isn't. The fact that this was originally made to be a celebratory epilogue, or at least function as one, is very apparent. As such, it is somewhat narratively unambitious, and the second act is a mild dip just because it does tread over so much familiar ground, which was its intention, but still. But overall, its presentation is so enjoyable. Its look is gorgeous, the music is all beautiful, varied, and fulfilling, the references to musicals are adorable. Of course, it was great to see Steg, but it really is Spinel that makes this movie. Her animation is spectacular, the use of its style is a clever and heartbreaking metaphor by itself, and her sympathetic arc could stand in for many people's experiences. There are various debates and interpretations to be had, which is part of the fun of Steven Universe. Anyway, now that we know that this isn't going to be the end, I look forward to seeing how they're gonna follow this up. In at minimum another year and a half. So what did you guys think of Steven Universe the movie? Comment, like, subscribe, etc., and you stay incredibly shiny, Animaniacs!